Well, I think it's about time to talk about the story of Returnal and really explain the story. Only the way a person who doesn't fully get it could. Hi, this is Jake, your resident content cowboy here, and I'm going to tell you the story of Returnal, at least as the way I see it. And to be fair, I'm probably wrong about a lot of this. Don't take my word for it. I'm kind of an idiot, but I will tell you what happened in Returnal. Of course, this video is going to be filled with spoilers and things you don't want to see, so yeah, go away if you don't want that. I don't know what you're doing here if you don't want some of those spoilers. Get out of here. Go do something else. Are you gone? I hope everyone who stayed wants to be here and you're not somehow fallen on the ground, you've broken your leg, you can't get to your computer and stop this video because while you want to obviously get to the hospital and fix the situation you're in, more importantly, you don't want spoilers. However, if you're still here, here we go. Let's talk about the ending and story of Returnal. Like any good roguelike game, Returnal is full of Greek stuff. Apparently, if you make a roguelike right now and you want it to have a good story, you got to have a lot of Greek stuff in there. So it's full of Greek gods and all that. You get it. Her name's Selene, and her daughter is Thea. Or wait, her mother is Thea, and her daughter is Helios, which is a ship. Okay, so here we go. You crash land on this planet, Atropos, which is also some, Greek god stuff. It means something. I'll look it up. Hold on. Okay, I looked it up. I knew it was a Greek mythology thing. So it's one of the three Moirae, goddesses of fate and destiny. It's the oldest of the three fates, and it's known as the inflexible, or the inevitable. I mean, the game talks a lot about this inevitability. I guess the big thought here is you're not on this alien planet, okay? You never crash landed there. There is no alien planet. This is all in your head. You never became an astronaut. It was a failed dream of yours. It was something you always wanted, but you never seemed to make happen. I don't know. You got a rejection letter. They wouldn't even give you a phone call. They wouldn't even tell you in person. They just told you, you're not an astronaut. Sorry, Brienne of Tarth. Oh, by the way, in this game, you play a character who is Brienne of Tarth, essentially. You might say, but Jake, that's not the actress who's Brienne of Tarth. It doesn't matter. You are Brienne of Tarth in this game. I will not argue this point any further. You are wrong if you do not think so. So when you first start playing this game, you're like, okay, I'm an astronaut. I'm trying to get off this place that I crash landed on, right? But there's all this weird stuff going on, and then your house is there, and then you have to go, am I crazy? Is this in my head? And then you start getting logs and stuff, realizing that, yeah, you're probably crazy, and you're on meds, and then you find a note saying that you never got accepted to the space program, and all that stuff starts to happen, and you die a bunch of times while you're playing, and you go online, and you talk about how the game's too hard, and then everyone tells you the game is not too hard even though you know it's too hard, but then you get better at the game and you actually realize it's not too hard and you were being a baby the whole time. Okay, so early on you realize that Brienne of Tarth has a daughter and has a mother, and the mother is apparently not so great. She's in a wheelchair, her life's not going so good, but she's kind of a nasty person. It's just a cycle of nastiness coming from your mom, and you got to deal with her. So you're like, oh, I'm not going to be as bad a mom as her, right? Well, okay. So your daughter seems to be a pretty nice kid, and by the end of your first sort of act in this game, you fight a bunch of Greek bosses, and you get shown a cutscene. Can you imagine if in real life when you're envisioning something, it's a cutscene? So anyway, back to the point I was trying to make. You beat this boss at the end of Act 1. And then all of a sudden you get this call that they've found you on this alien planet and they're coming back to get you. They're going to extract you. You come home. They have a weird cutscene. It just flashes of what happens in your life and you're kind of decorated with a medal. And you see flashes of you doing things, playing the piano, being in a field, a bridge. Ooh, what's that bridge about, right? And you see people around a grave, and you see people sort of looking down into a dugout grave. Why can't I think of a better word than that? That's where the grave is. Anyway, that's what you see. And for some reason, you have to go back to this planet. You have to go back to Atropos, and all of a sudden you are back years and years later. So this is the plot that is sort of happening outside of what is really going on. I think it's pretty clear at this point, I will say, that Brienne of Tarth is trying to deal with the regret of not hooking up with Jaime Lannister more and stopping him from going to King's Landing and dying in that stupid, stupid way underground. No, what is happening is at the end of that car scene, you are driving. Did I even talk about the car scene? Hold on. So you go all the way through the planet again. This is what gets you to this car scene. It's the end of Act 2. And you go through your house multiple times again. You learn more about your situation. But the big thing here is this car scene that comes up at the end of Act 2. You go all the way through the planet again, and every place is a little different. The overgrown ruins are different. Well, they were the overgrown ruins. Now they're the echoing ruins. So they're, more overgrown. And then the desert's an ice place. You get it. Everything's different. The robot place is now underwater. Okay. You go through all this stuff. You fight some more Greek bosses. And the final one is particularly interesting. I mean, they're all interesting because they clearly relate to this character's life. But the final one is the most interesting of all because, I mean, we'll get into it, but it essentially looks like it is your wheel-bound shared mother. Essentially, that's what the boss is. Okay, so you fight this boss who at first you don't know is basically your mother in a wheelchair. And then you get this cutscene where you are driving in I keep calling it a cutscene. You get this scene, I guess it's a cutscene, where you are driving in a car with your daughter, Selene and Helios. Now, I'll admit, when I was watching this scene, I wasn't sure who was Selene, if both characters were Selene, if both characters were Helios, or no, if both characters were Thea. I couldn't figure out if I was watching Thea, or I was watching Thea and Selene, or Selene and Helios. I don't even think I knew that Helios was the daughter for a really long time, because I thought Helios was the ship, right? What does Helios mean? Did I look that up yet? Okay, so Helios is the god of the sun. I'm not sure how I can work this into my theory here. I don't really know how that relates. It's definitely a Greek name, okay? So there's that. Okay, I'm kind of on track here. So in the car scene, you're driving with your daughter. You're messing around with the radio, and you see this astronaut in the road. There's been this astronaut following you the whole game. You're sort of in a futuristic astronaut suit, and the whole time you're seeing one of those classic, like, I landed on the moon, one of the original Neil Armstrong style astronaut people. In the road, as you are driving, you look up from messing around with the radio, see the astronaut, and you swerve off the road. You're on like a bridge-like section. This couldn't have happened in a worse time. You're on a bridge-like section. You hit the guardrail. You go off the edge. You careen into the water. And the car now plunges deep, deep, deep into the water. And that's kind of what the third area of the game really represents in general, is the depths of that moment. So you're in the deep underwater area, and you need to get out. This is Selene here, Brienne of Tarth, our main character. You got to get out of this underwater car. You're in a car underwater with time to kill. That's a famous Armor for Sleep song, might say. And you're trying to get your seatbelt off, and then you're trying to reach back to get your daughter, Helios, and you can't get her. You recognize the worst thing I guess you could possibly have to face as a parent, that your child is going to die, and I got emotional at this idea just now. I am a parent. Your child is going to die in the back seat of this car. There's nothing you can do about it. And you think, of course, that you'll do anything to save your child. You'll fight and fight and fight. You'll even die in the car drowning to get your kid out. But while you're trying to do that, something rips you out of the car. These tentacles pull you out of the water, and you are not able to save your child. Then the game says, okay, Brienne, well, this is a roguelike, and we need to get you to go through it a bunch of times, so you're going to have to go through this game, through every area again, finding more information as you go, but more importantly, collecting these little fragments of a key. You do a few more house sequences. You do one more house sequence where you are your daughter, Helios, and you are playing a PlayStation 5, which, by the way, I don't know how this family got their hands on a PlayStation 5 because they seem to be a real mess. There's no way someone stood in line for it. I don't think that kid was able to get onto every website faster than these bots. So the huge plot hole in this game is that this kid has a PlayStation 5. It makes no sense. Anyway, she's playing Returnal. It's weird, but I think it's just kind of a fun nod to it because it's not part of the game. It's not part of the story, really. I mean, your daughter loves this little octopus and, she kind of thinks the astronaut stuff is fun, but she doesn't realize it's like a failed dream of yours. You probably told her at points, you're like, hey, I'm like a real big deal astronaut, but I can't be because of the whole wheelchair situation we got in the garage. Anyway, here we go. You learn more about your situation. You learn about the horrible relationship with your mom. You learn about you taking antidepressants or pills or whatever they are to hopefully numb the pain from this situation of you losing your daughter in that car accident and not being able to save her because you got ripped out of the car, right? Then you go through all the worlds again. You collect these sun face fragments. I don't really recognize how they relate to the story, but they do. Fine. Having all of those, you're able to go back into the house and you're able to get the car key. So at the end of Act 2, you come upon a car sitting underwater, and it is the car that you obviously escaped from. It's actually a very, very cool scene. I will say, for all the joking I'm doing in here, I really love this game and I love this story. Just having fun with what's going on. So Brienne is underwater and you come upon the car. Before you had the key, and at the end of Act 2, you couldn't do anything with the car, but now you can interact with the car. So you approach the car, and you put the key in it, and you get sort of the final cutscene inside the game. I keep calling them cutscenes. Hold on, I gotta look up cutscene. Looks like I'm kind of using it correctly, but I don't know if it's the best possible thing I could be saying here. Anyway, you get the final scene in the game. You have a moment where you confront your mother in the wheelchair, basically, and you recognize that you are the person in the astronaut chute, the white shadow, the thing that has been following you around the entire game. It's you. There's a moment earlier in the game where you are shown to be the person who shoots down your own ship, your ship named Helios, the same name as your daughter, Helios. You blame yourself for your daughter's death. You have so much anger and resentment towards your mother, who is in a wheelchair, because you do feel like taking care of her is partially responsible for you not becoming an astronaut. There's this clear hatred there for your mother. Your mother's in a chair. Your mother's in a chair, man. And because of that, maybe you never got to pursue your dreams. You are always thinking about that, about how you should have become an astronaut. You got the rejection letter. You're not paying attention when you're driving. And in that moment, the thing that makes you swerve off the road and crash is not an actual astronaut standing in the road. It is you. You are the white shadow. You are looking over all of your mistakes in your life. You caused the car crash. You caused the ship, Helios, crashing. The ship that can't be repaired. That ship is your daughter. You are forever going to live with this grief that you couldn't save your child. It's sad, but it's just the true thing of life. You would never get over it. It would always be there. You would always be on Atropos. Atropos? You'd always be on the planet. You'd always be living with that grief. And here in this final moment, we hear the last line of the entire game. It ties everything together, and it tells you who your daughter is.
Helios.
And that moment really says it all. It's the end of this story. And I found it to be really incredible. I loved Returnal. I did. I loved the slow drip of the story throughout the game. And when I was telling a friend the plot here, I remember him saying, oh, that sounds kind of cheap. that it was all in this person's head. And a lot of the times I think that's the case. But here, I don't think so. I really don't think that this being an internal struggle makes this story any worse. In fact, I think it's kind of a beautiful, I guess, touching story. I really loved Returnal. All the jokes and everything aside, I really loved it. I really loved the story. And I got hooked. I wanted to know how it ended. So, there you have it. My take on the story of Returnal. I think I'm pretty close, honestly, if not exactly right. I'm pretty close. I haven't given you every single bit, about how the organ player in Act 2 is a representation of your dad who taught you piano, who clearly wasn't around, maybe abandoned you and your mother after she got paralyzed. It's a whole thing. But that's the basics of the story of Returnal, a game that I really, really loved. And I hope this rambling, fun, calling it fun, I'm deciding it's fun. I hope this rambling, fun explanation was as interesting for you as it was for me to do. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. If you disagree, I'd be curious. What do you think is happening in Returnal? What did I really miss here? I might have missed something just as I'm rambling on. But thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And I will see you back on Atropos. Helios!